welcome on behalf of the Dutchess County Historical Society. We're launching our virtual event space with this event, and I thank the Poughkeepsie Public Library for helping us do that this month. But we're doing this in collaboration with Celebrating the African Spirit, which is a new group with long and deep and lasting roots. And we heard from Carmen a little before, maybe she'll speak later as well. Celebrating the African Spirit, as I say, is a new group focused on celebrating the contributions of those of Africans and their descendants here locally, but it's rooted in the Black History Project Committee of Dutchess County, Lorraine Roberts, Walter Patrice, and so on. So it's wonderful that this group has kind of, under Carmen's leadership, and been revitalized, has a focus, has projects happening. It's very exciting.
And we got our 501c3.
So you can start writing checks.
And receiving them.
So what I particularly like about what you might find today that I found amazing is the power of local history to show you how certain things are universal. They are true across generations. In this case, they're true across continents and oceans, and cross gender and race and so on. And so I am particularly happy that this message of Sadie Peterson Delaney has reached so many ears in such a positive way. And I was going to just explain a little bit about how I'm going to share my screen to explain a little bit about how I came to know Sadie Delaney. We were working at the Historical Society last year on the 100th anniversary, Women Gaining the Right to Vote. I was looking at women locally who were active in the women's suffrage movement. And I came across a woman who was then Sadie Peterson, who read a poem, an original poem called A Suffrage Call at the AME Zion Church, the Smith AME Zion Church, where she was active. That prompted me to look at the Walter Patrice collection that we have at the Historical Society, and there I found references to her. I found this photograph of her. I found some of her poems, and we began to profile her on our website. Because as it turned out, she was quite well known nationally. Not to belittle her stint in 1914 advocating women's suffrage, but she became famous around this concept of using reading to heal in hospitals. And we all have, televisions dangling now to soothe us. At the hospital before TV, there was Dr. Sadie Delaney. So, if you go to the church today at the AME Zion Church, you'll find in the vestibule a gift that was given from the Tuskegee Institute to then President Roosevelt in 1939, and he in turn gave it to the AME Zion Church in Poughkeepsie. And I have no doubt that Sadie Peterson Delaney was involved in this, and that Roosevelt knew of her relationship with Poughkeepsie and the work. And this is kind of a tangible evidence, if you will, today of her relationship with Poughkeepsie, even after she left as an adult to head to Tuskegee. So stop sharing that. We had put this profile on our website, and then only a couple of months ago, Natty Mark called and said he found her fascinating, and we started to compare notes on her. And besides being a teacher, Natty Mark is an author. Some of you have seen the ballad that he's written and the novella, but I was able to, read these words about her, having studied kind of historical facts, and found that he really brought her to life in a way that was really very beautiful and very personal. And as good as that is, then we were introduced to Grace Angela Henry, who will do a reading that I think you'll find really even brings those words into a greater personal intimacy.
Sure.
So I want to thank Maddie Mark and he's going to explain a little bit about what he does at the African School in England. He's near Oxford. And we will take it from there. What have I done or forgotten? I think that's largely it. So, Maddie Mark, I was just going to kick it off. I know you've been thinking a lot, but I just wondered if you'd speak to, as I was speaking earlier about the universality of some of the things related to Sadie Delaney and what you found, when you quote discovered her a couple of months ago. What was it that motivated you? How did it fit into the work you're doing?
Well, she was just first of all, I would like to say greetings to everyone, and to you, Bill. A big thank you to you. You're the great facilitator who's brought us all together. So I want to say that first of all. Sadie Delaney was just someone that I think there are certain people who shine during their lifetime, and then for some reason they tend to get kind of disregarded as time goes on. So when I came across her, it was kind of became my mission to kind of resurrect her. The same thing that there's a guy called Jeffrey Perry, who in recent years has kind of resurrected the life of Hubert Harrison, another New York icon. And so I'm trying to do the same thing with Sadie Delaney. I think that kind of, especially in the times that we're going through now with the pandemic, books, and literature can be such a motivating force. We've got time in our hands, it's locked down. What better way to kind of delve in and use that time to kind of rediscover for ourselves certain people.
That's excellent. And can you tell us a little bit about the work you do at the school, when you founded it, what you have been doing? Yeah.
Okay. As opposed to, or in comparison to America, England has a real dearth of provision concerning African studies. I live here in Oxford, and if you look at Oxford, it's only the Oxford University that offers a degree, and only at master's level. The other university doesn't. All the other colleges, the City College, the Aberdeen and Whitney College, none of them offer any kind of provision as far as African studies is concerned. So I took it on myself to set up this project to make sure that the general community has access. Because if you think, if we're going to break down ignorance, then it's got to be balanced. So if we're taught about Churchill, we should be taught about Kwame Nkrumah. Kind of, for 5 years I went to school, and as far as theatre was concerned, it was Shakespeare. I never heard of Wallace Shayinka until I left school. If we're going to be looking at, if we're in art classes, if we're going to be told about Cubism, then we should be told about Honorism, which is one of the schools of art in Nigeria. So honor is the Yoruba word around art and design. So there's a school of creativity which kind of uses traditional Yoruba motifs. So I'm just trying to kind of bring some balance to education and to kind of fill in the gaps. So I've been lucky. I've been able to teach in schools and community projects, universities, colleges. I think if people realize you've got a passion for something, that passion will generate its own kind of pathway. So yeah, I've been lucky to follow this pathway, and I'm happiest when teaching. And yeah, I just want to carry on just being a channel for education, really.
I was telling Maddie Mark shortly after I met him that I was impressed that he didn't want to just tell the story of Sadie Delaney, but he really wanted to, like, to be honest, he'd been already practicing this concept, right? That reading is good for us in so many different ways. But I think he's been able to take her history and legacy and bring it back to life. So I don't know if now you want to talk about the novella or what you've written, or maybe reads some from us.
Okay.
I've tried to share with most people the ballad and then the novella. And if you don't have a copy, contact me, we'll get you one.
Okay. Okay, I'm just going to read three short pieces. If those of you have got a copy, the first one I'm going to read it is number 5.
And it's,
I
can
never
you
heard
tell
the
us,
term. Sorry.
sorry, can you just remind me of the title and the general concept?
Okay. So it's called a Journal of Leroy Carter. So he's a character that I've made up to facilitate the story of the Hellfighters and the provision that was offered at the Tuskegee Hospital and Sadie Delaney's input there. So using the journal, I'm trying to incorporate all these elements.
Very good. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so the first of 3 pieces, this is number 5 if you've got the novella. I never heard the term nor seen its manifestation before. Dr. Branch told me he'd been like that since 1918. As well as the place of taking food, it is the place of sound. We have a natural inclination to vocalize, to express ourselves in whatever shape or manner, to talk, to sing, to recite, and so on, to praise and to offer condolences, to pray. Then something happens that takes away that need to verbalize, to enjoy the simple pleasure of conversation. Have you ever seen a man who can hear but never responds? I wonder what he hears. All of us here have seen what no one wants to see, so we are the carriers of the dreaded flashback. But I wonder what he saw that has generated his condition. I wonder what the eyes of Private Marvin Palmer saw and what his body felt, because since that last year of the war till now, he hasn't spoken. I never heard of mutism before. This one is number 51. Woke up feeling chirpy this morning. On the way to the bathroom, I found myself whistling Eubie Blake. Came back and had a little pillow fight with Jerry. The bright one was laughing out in her yellow joyfulness, so I smiled back at her, whistling Eubie Blake. She invited me out, so I took a stroll around the grounds, acknowledging one and all, and shared a joke with one of the nurses. A heron flew over, so I whistled Eubie Blake a little sweeter. Went to a bookbinding session, another thing that Miss Delaney began, but wanting to be outside with the sun and everyone, I whistled Eubie Blake while I made my exit. Stopped and had a chat with Dr. Branch, then pushed the wheelchair of Private Robinson to his reconstruction session, whistling Eubie Blake. One day, I do not know when, hope to see shuffle along, but until that time, when I can, I'll go along, whistling Eubie Blake. And the last one is actually the last piece in the novella. It's a poem, 71, Happy Convert Blues. She opened the mind of a man anchored in futility. Opened the mind of the man anchored in futility. As I began to fester, along came Miss Delaney. There is healing on the bookshelves in novellas and poetry. Yes, there's healing on the bookshelves in novellas and poetry, in magazines and pamphlets, plays and in short stories. There's no better place to be than being in the library. There's no better place to be than being in the library. I am the happy convert to bibliotherapy.
That's very, very beautiful. I'm stunned sometimes by how, especially when you're, when I'm reading about some of the men going through nightmares or difficulties, or they're, it's so palpable. Where do you draw such powerful imagery and understanding from?
I think we all go through our own episodes of deep personal sadness. And it only takes a little bit more to kind of, if you kind of imagine or empathize with someone else's situation, and war is universal. I think if we use our own experiences and extend it by taking on someone else's suffering, we can write and understand much more than what we think.
And that's, and you live that in a sense with the with what you do by helping people read and think and and so on in your work at the school, I presume.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Because I work with such a wide variety of people. I've worked with people with mental health illness, with learning difficulties, people who are visually impaired. Yeah, that just generates something universal in you. You know, kind of you step out of your own kind of personal story and you begin to embrace others.
Beautifully put. I didn't know if the others have questions. I had or comments in particular about the novella or what Eddie Mark's written in terms of this particular piece. Does anyone want to offer a comment or a question? There may be few of us, enough of us. Oh, Mike Bowden, do you want to unmute and ask?
Yeah, I sure will. First of all, hi everybody, and hi Natty. Thank you for joining us. I will say my background is that of a military historian, and I've got a question that may be a little bit beyond what you're doing, but I wondering if you had any insight. When I was reading the story of Leroy Carter, before I even got to some of your references, I was thinking, wow, you know, I'm thinking back to Owen and to Sassoon and to Tolkien and to some of these writers of the First World War. And when we typically think of Black voices in World War I, we think of the music. We think of James Reese Europe. We think of On Patrol in No Man's Land. But I'm wondering, is there a collection of Black voices, you know, either in an African-American sense or a colonial sense that has, that either you've taken some of your inspiration from or that's out there? Do you have any insight on that? I don't know.
No, I mean, I haven't come across a collection of poems by any of the Black war veterans. All my inspiration basically came from was reading a range of articles by the American military organizations. I'll tell you what I did watch, which was really kind of one of the heaviest pieces of viewing that I've seen. During the First World War, there was some experiments with veterans in this country, and it was recorded, and I think it was recorded by Pathé. And if you see it, it is kind of, if you just Google First World War veterans in England in hospital, you'll come up with this kind of range of short videos, and it shows these veterans with gait disorders and you know, facial movements, and that was really kind of heavy kind of viewing for me. And it was that kind of viewing that got me kind of involved deeper into the whole, because it's strange today that they should call this thing combat fatigue. I mean, originally it was called shell shock, as you know, but as we came to the Second World War, they came up with terms like combat fatigue. And to me, that just seems like a misnomer. I mean, people are more than tired, you know, they needed more than a few days of rest. You know, the military wanted this, the psychiatrists didn't. The military basically wanted these guys patched up and sent out as quick as possible. And they gave them this term, combat fatigue, as if a few days rest and then you can step back into the front line again. So kind of, it was these kind of, this misuse of a terminology, and just watching the kind of the effects that it had on these people. There's one story about a guy who'd been a happy kind of positive, upbeat character, a great father. He'd come back and kind of his children kind of became fearful of him because every little thing kind of irritated him, and you saw this scenario where his wife and the children are in one room, and then the veteran is in another room, and he spends all his time there basically on his own. So it's all these kind of things really that kind of generated you know, this need within me to write about the suffering of the veterans.
Thank you very much. I think you captured it very, very well and poignantly. So thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Respect.
Someone else? Comment, question?
Can I just say something about the psychiatrists as well? Is that
Please.
okay? But I've got a couple of minutes.
You certainly do.
Okay. So first of all, I'd like to mention Thomas Salmon. He was this pioneering white psychiatrist. He'd been part of what is called the National Committee of Mental Hygiene. And he was this kind of reforming figure as far as mental health provision was concerned. So there's one guy I'd like to mention, who I give respect to, Dr. Thomas Salmon. And then we would come to the doctors at the Veterans Hospital there in Alabama. So there was a guy called Solomon Fuller, born in Liberia. Now he's seen as the first black psychiatrist in America. And it was he that selected and trained the first psychiatrist that worked at the hospital there in Alabama, because you remember all of the staff were black. So he was the one that selected them. Most of them had graduated from the Boston Medical School, and he trained them. And these were the guys who gave the first psychiatric treatment to the guys such as Leroy Carter. So these were the guys that worked alongside Sadie Delaney. She would actually be someone who's a physical presence. All the medical conferences that went on concerning the individual patients. She was there at all these meetings because she felt that she needs to get this holistic picture, and then she'll be able to prescribe the literature she thought best for each individual. So this was a real marriage between the medical profession and the library provision, and together they gave this great example of the workings of bibliotherapy.
So I have a question someone sent in, just curious about sources for coming to understand Sadie Delaney's words and works. Did she have a journal or autobiography? How did I guess you and I, how did we collectively come to understand and know this woman?
I mean, it just takes searching, because there's not really a lot out there on her. There's been no biography written about her. Articles here and there, or she gets mentioned within articles, but there's a real dearth of information about her. So that's why events like this today are necessary, because collectively we can all help to resurrect her.
I'd like to see if the library has more information, what exactly they have when we can go to on-site places again. So it always struck me that she was so well known as a teenager and into her 20s for being a poet, for writing her own words. I wondered if she in any way kept that up later, if she wrote her own things, or if she really started to think more in terms of helping other people hear other people's words.
Well, I know she wrote articles, because she wrote articles for The Messenger. She wrote articles for The Crisis, which are two of the which are two of the great journals. Poetry, I can't imagine that she would ever stop writing poetry. I haven't seen any evidence of it, but this is something that she'd been doing as a youth. So I'm sure that she continued to write poetry. But I know that she wrote for journals talking about her work at the library.
Interesting. Any other comments or questions? Checking my text. Because if not, perhaps Thady Mark, you could introduce the ballad that Grace Angela Henry is so kind to read to us today.
Okay. When I first came across her, this thing kind of started in me that I've just got to get her out there. So the first thing I wrote was this ballad just as an introduction to her. When I think about her, you know, I think about her as one of life's beautiful people. You know, she kind of embraced everyone. I call her the patron saint of inclusion. And she just wanted to bring everyone within her embrace. And when you come across someone like that, especially someone who's been somewhat disregarded, you just feel this need just to kind of expose the beauty of this person to everyone. So I wrote the ballad, and we're very lucky to have the great sister to read it for us. People, you are going to enjoy this. Bill and I have already had a taste of this reading, so we know what a great thing you have ahead of you. But yeah, we're very happy to have Sister Angela give the inaugural reading of this ballad.
Thank you. You know, librarians were some of my very first adult friends. Certainly my parents had adult friends, and we children certainly had relationships with them, but they were more like aunties and uncles. But librarians were my very first adult friends. Somehow they treated me as an equal in some way, very different than classroom teachers. Classroom teacher, that's the boss, that's the person who's in charge. But with librarians, there was a peership kind of relationship. And although there certainly were books in the classrooms where I was in pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, first grade, every classroom had books in it. But the world of the librarian, I mean, the library, she had all the books. And back then the librarians in my life were all women. And it was a magical world for me. At the school that I attended, we were only allowed to have 3 books out at a time. And I could get through 3 books pretty easily over a weekend. So 3 books were not enough. So every Friday after school, I would go to my public library branch. I would roller skate over there. And there the limit was 5 books. So I could have 8 books every weekend. So librarians for me were not only these magical keepers of this wonderful world of books, but also the key to my having an enjoyable weekend. So librarians have always held a very special place in my heart. And when I learned about Delaney's work, really through the ballad, because I did not know about her before, I was fascinated, because certainly to some extent, I have experienced the healing of books, and we probably all have. If we're feeling melancholy and we read a book that's uplifting or a poem that's uplifting, we've all experienced the power of literature of different kinds. So I was fascinated about the medical effects that this could have. So it's really a pleasure for me. It's an honor for me to be reading the ballad, but it's also a pleasure for me to be reading it because of my own experience with librarians, with libraries, and with books. So Natty Mark, I thank you. So give me a moment, and then we will hear the ballad. Ballad of Sadie Delaney by Natty Mark Samuels. Dedication to the Sadie Peterson Delaney African Roots Library. In the city where Mr. Freedom lived and the North Star resided, there was born a girl who unshackled the minds of many from the darkness of illiteracy. Where the Seneca lived and the Genesee flows and the Underground Railroad passed by. Where the mills once turned before the factories came with the advent of cameras and lenses. The city by Lake Ontario of Harriet Tubman and the Dreamers. There was born a girl who brought healing to the sufferers, broken in body and mind. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. Do you feel proud, Rochester, that the healer was born in your city? Is there a plaque, a library, a hospital wing named after her. You have celebrated Mr. Freedom with a statue in a local park. But what of her? She also possessed the golden key that unlocked the rusting chain. Blessed were those who came under her care, the young offender, the visually impaired, youthful immigrant, and veteran soldier. Let her birthday be a day of caring throughout the city of her birth. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. Were you ever invited back, my heroine, to your high school in Poughkeepsie? When the world came knocking at your door, did the principal extend an invitation? Were books a major part of your life then? Contentment amongst the tomes. Did you read Paul Dunbar? Did you know of Meta Fuller? Was literature central to your younger days? I will have to dig in further, happily researching, exploring your time by the Hudson, your favorite classes and teacher, and the projects and clubs you took part in. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. I imagine her in a church called Zion, reciting her poetry, encouraging the younger ones to write. The popular Sabbath school teacher, the bolsterer of everyone, champion of her congregation, ambassador for the youth, where the Cottage and Smith Streets meet. The old ones take her arm. I imagine her where the African Methodists gather, lauded by the elders, role model to the youngsters, an African princess in Dutchess County. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. I wonder if Hubert Harrison was teaching there when she graduated from New York City College. Was the man known as the Black Socrates blessing that institution then, with every step taken through the corridors? I know she worked alongside the St. Croix icon in her time of professional provision. But did she hear him in a lecture room or speak on the street in the time before graduation? In 1919, the year of the Red Summer and the Claude McKay poem, she was soon to begin training that would lead the way to the healing. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. So many things come to mind, thinking of the library where she trained, especially the 135th Street branch, a place of trailblazers and titans, a venue of beautiful legacy. 2 years of training in the profession of her destiny at the New York Public Library. The healer learning of medicine, stepping stones to future mountains. Although the decision was hers, I believe inspiration came from elsewhere, and a higher force planted the seed. Blessed with patience and the zeal to share, on the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. When I think of the 135th branch, I always smile, thinking and silently celebrating the other pioneering librarians, Catherine Latimer, Roberta Bowlesley, and Regina Andrews. I think of Langston Hughes and Augusta Savage, Arturo Schomburg and County Cullen, James Weldon Johnson and Jesse Fawcett, W.E.B. Du Bois and Charles Alston, and always Hubert Harrison. Of the Krigwa players and the NAACP, art workshops and the HAEC, poetry readings and lecture series, art exhibitions and literacy classes, a spotlight on the Harlem Renaissance. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. Tell me of dedication. Tell me of the one who learned Braille And moon code also. In her need to reach everyone, she learned the text of the visually impaired. She reached out to all, the youth known to the local police, teenage migrants in a strange land, to the community elders also, in the encouragement of the young. I imagine them gathering round her in the Harlem Library, as they did in the Poughkeepsie Church. Time for story hour, the hour of awaited encounter. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. But how many were there on his return? Another tangled mind, raging between reality and dream, languishing on a rehab bed. And the one in the next bed, also back from a front line far away, shadow of a former physique, crying into his pillow, tearful of artificial limbs. So my heroine took her time with each and every one. What began as a 6-month posting became a passion of 30 years. The soldiers sang a refrain of gratitude. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. The loss to the youth of Harlem was gain to the soldiers in Tuskegee, combatants in the Veterans Hospital, because life got a lift when she began to walk the wards, because she took her time, because she got to know them. She could suggest textual remedy. When faith in God was elsewhere, they believed in bibliotherapy. For this, she has my deepest respects, for the decades of solace she offered, through the selective choosing of books. In consultation with the doctors, she prescribed sagas for sail-away time. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. I heard she instigated a cart library for those who were bedridden, screen text also for those who could not hold books. Let us speak of the patron saint of inclusion. She tidied and warmed up the library with color on the wall and in vases, a place of welcome for the ones that were mobile, another place to be. A woman of 2 libraries, one for the veterans, the other for the medical staff. She acquired for both of them, widening their circulations. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. There were discussions of books and the reading of poetry. She taught Braille to those who needed it. The singing of songs, the lullaby of stories. Through her boosting, they exhibited their art, gave talks to the general public. She believed in what she was doing, and the soldiers appareled in stress. As well as the unknown warrior, let us remember the forgotten librarian. In the time to heal, I would have liked her at my morning bedside. Solid assurance for another day. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney. Isn't it good to know she was respected far and wide? Academics and students alike came to spend time with an oracle, a source of wisdom, offering daily access. That is what she must have possessed, wisdom. You cannot work with the shattered and the torn for all those years and not be a gatherer of the purest gold. Let me pay homage where it is due. I know the Black Panther tank units must honor her, as must the Tuskegee Airmen and the Harlem Hellfighters also. I know that they'll stand and salute her too. On the 26th of February, I shall stand and salute the one known as Sadie Delaney.
Bless you.
Very beautiful.
Aye, beautiful.
Takes a moment I guess we maybe should have mentioned that this coming Friday is Sadie Delaney's birthday, the 26th of February. So our timing is very good. It's somewhat intentional.
Natty Mark, the other thing I wanted to just mention, I had the extraordinary opportunity as a youth to go to Greece and went to Delphi and went into the Oracle Cave. Of course, now everything's roped off, but the idea of an oracle and Sadie Delaney as an oracle just really, really moved me.
Bless you. Hey, thank you for that reading.
All right, everyone. I look forward to keeping in touch with people after, and it sounds like there's a little momentum for some things here. So again, yes, thank you, Natty Mark, for pulling this off, and Grace Angela Henry for making it come to life. And we will be in touch.
Great.
Thank you very much.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.